for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She's the author of thrillers, mostly medical and scientific, none other than Miss Deven Greene. Welcome, Miss Devon, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Okay, well, I'm Deven Greene, and I've written several. Well, actually, at this point, six. I've got six published books. I'm working on my seventh, and I have a background in medicine and science, biochemistry. So um, that's the subject of my books. They say write what you know, so that's what I do. So some of them are displayed here. I have a trilogy which starts with unnatural, which has unwitting and unforeseen, and then I have another one called Ties That Kill that I don't see here. But at any rate, you know, I retired, and then I thought I would. There we go. I would try my hand at writing. I used to write when I was much younger, and then yeah, school and life got in the way, as they say. So I took it up again pretty seriously uh, about 8 years ago. Um, so I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what my process is. It's changed over time. So every writer has a different way of approaching things, and I've pretty much got my way down. I am what you would call more of I'm in between what's called a plotter and a pantser. Plotters are people that make a, a good outline of their book and they have everything all figured out. And a pantser is someone who just kind of starts off and just goes with it. I always have a story arc in mind. Uh, I used to be more of a plotter when I started, but I realized that as I write, things come up and I need to make adjustments as I really get down to the nitty gritty of writing and what happens next. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I start off with a general plot and an arc, and I develop characters, and then they kind of go through the motions of what I had planned, and that's how I do it. I When I'm writing a novel, a new novel, I write a certain number of words a day. That everyone has their own method of doing things. Some people will write for a certain amount of time a day. Some will write for a certain number of words, and some just kind of do it when they feel like it. um,
When
but
they feel like it. Mhm.
yeah, and that can take a much longer time. So I usually have a rough draft of a novel in about 3 months from start to finish, but that's just the rough draft. Then it needs a lot of work. So I'm the type of writer that just wants to get it down. I don't correct things as I go along in terms of spelling, punctuation, and things like that. So that's how I approach it. There's some people that can't stand to have something imperfect on the page. They'll write something and then go back and correct it the same day. Uh, I'm not like that. So, so that's
Well,
it. Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Devon. Thank you through your books. So, so
Pleasure.
today, let's talk about the writing process of all your books. So tell us, what does your writing space or ideal writing ritual look like, and why is it environment important for your creative process?
Okay, I'm not quite sure what you're asking. What what is my process like?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, your
So
writing process, Miss
okay, so
Devon.
so once I get my rough draft done, then the hard work is editing, and I probably spend more time editing than writing. I have a lot of plots in my head. And I get kind of excited by one, and then I want to do that one, but I need to finish what I've already started. But once I get everything written down, from beginning to the end, um, I like to put it aside for a little bit, and then I go back and start editing so that it's in good enough shape that somebody else could read it. Because really, when I finish my rough draft, um, there's probably a lot of skipping around, things that I haven't filled in that wouldn't make sense to somebody else. So I go through it and I make it so it makes sense. And then I give it to a couple of my early readers, and that's my husband and my brother.
Mhm.
um, I get a little feedback from them, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. Then I go through it again, and then I do some more serious editing, and I need to go through it several times. And I do have outside editors, and I can talk a little bit about outside editors if you would like. Uh,
Mhm. Go ahead. Go
okay.
ahead, Miss Devon.
Yeah, so I think editors are really, really important because when somebody's writing, you don't have um, feedback. You don't know what's clear to other people. So and I think this is true of every or most authors. I mean, you write something and you know what you mean. You know what happened in your mind. Sometimes you forget to write that down. Okay, so I use both developmental editors as well as copy editors, and those are two general types of editors, which I'll use depending on the book. Um, but a developmental editor is somebody who will read your book
Mhm.
makes
People mo
sense, are not going to believe that you have the same opinion as your editor. But as a writer, of course, it's up to you to decide what what advice you want to take and what you don't want to take. So sometimes you might have an editor that's what I would say not on your wavelength. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and one thing I find is when I write a book, sometimes I'll write something and think, well, maybe that's a stretch, but it makes perfectly good sense. So that's what I'm going to write. And an editor will say, that's too much of a stretch. It's like I always have the feeling that it was, and then it gets pointed out to me that yeah, it was. So then I have to rewrite that, and that's good. It's good to have that kind of feedback.
Mhm.
Um, and then sometimes they just really are on a different wavelength. They want you to change your style. They want you to change your wording. They just want to have it written differently. So that's where each writer has to decide what he or she wants to incorporate. Um, at the end, there's a, what would be a copy editor. They have or a line editor. I don't know exactly what the difference between those two is. Um, but basically that's where you get down to the grammar, the punctuation, what makes sense, the style. You want to follow general rules of grammar, although even there can be differences of opinion. And again, it's up to the author to decide uh, which way to go. Okay, so
Mhm.
um, one might think that there's grammar is only one way, but it isn't. As we all know, English is a living language, and there have been many changes over the years. So some things are really in a gray area. Uh, yeah, so it's really up to the author to decide what to do. But I find editors are really really needed. Um, I usually will at some point listen to my book on Word, Microsoft Word. You can have it read to you. So I have it actually read my document to me. And you'd be surprised at the things I pick up that I didn't pick up when I was reading, because your eyes will gloss over very small changes in spelling that will change the pronunciation of a word. And you pick it up better by listening to it. So I find that also very helpful. So those are, and then of course there's the audiobook, which is a separate thing. And I do list. I don't think all authors do that, but so far I've been listening to all my audiobooks before they go out, to hopefully make sure they're okay. I have not a lot of medical terminology, but I have some terminology that can be mispronounced. So I'd like to get that as accurate as possible. So in a nutshell, that's how I go about it.
So many writers have a core philosophy or principle that guides their work. What is the central tenet of your approach to writing and how did it develop?
Well, that's a good question. So basically, I like my books to be entertaining. Okay, so they shouldn't be like a textbook, although sometimes textbooks can be entertaining. But I like readers to learn something from my books. So I have different topics that I cover. They don't read like a textbook, but I think people can learn a fair amount from my books without, being bored by it. So it's a story, but for instance, the very first book I wrote, which is Unnatural, um, was about human genetic engineering and CRISPR. So I incorporated a story about a young Chinese girl that shows up at a clinic in San Francisco, and she has blue eyes. Well, that's impossible. Okay. So the doctor that sees her sees this 100% Chinese girl. She has blue eyes and gets curious about it and uncovers a secret program in China where they're editing embryos, and she was one of the first ones. And I won't go into the whole plot, but people that are curious about CRISPR and the pluses and minuses of it might learn some things about the book, because that's a very monumental technology that's going to have a lot of repercussions, mostly good or all good, I hope. Okay.
All
um,
good.
well, I hope
Mhm.
so. And that brings up something else, actually. In a way, it might be easier to write historical fiction because history doesn't change. But I write things that are contemporary. It, they could be considered science fictiony by some people, but I consider everything I write about to be possible. Maybe it hasn't been done yet, but it's possible. So when I wrote Unnatural with about human, embryonic gene cell editing, it hadn't been done. And part of the reason why it hadn't been done was there's a worldwide moratorium on it. It's considered something you just don't do, okay? Because there's too many possibilities for errors, etc. So nobody was doing that. So that's why I had this secret operation. Well, after I'd finished the rough draft, a Chinese doctor announced that he had done that. I don't know if you remember that, but a few years ago,
Mhm.
there was a Chinese doctor who announced that he had genetically um, altered 4 embryos. And so actually, I swore a lot because that was my plot. It hadn't been done before, but I had to go back and make it hadn't been published yet. It was very close to that. I had to go back and make a few changes to mention that it had been done. And the thing is, a lot of things may be done, but we don't know about it. So those experiments, what led up to that, was going on for a while, but he hadn't told anybody until he went and announced it. And then there was a lot of horror that, you know, people were horrified. And actually, these there are four kids. They're we don't know anything about them. They're several years old now. They were born. We don't know anything about them, how healthy they are, what the effects were. What he chose to edit was not a very it, it kind of didn't make sense. It was kind of almost silly to edit that, but he did it, and we don't really know what the effects were on the babies. So anyway, but that brings up an interesting question because I also talk about you know what are the effects of this? Should we be doing this to people? And I'd say at this point, no, we shouldn't, because there's too many unknowns. There's too many. At some point, it may be perfected more, but at this point, um, we have some CRISPR edits that are done in adults where we add cells and we know what we're doing. But embryonic gene editing is very dangerous.
Uh,
So
Dangerous indeed. So, Miss Devon, as an author, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
I'm sorry. What are my what?
What are your short-term and long-term goals?
My short term and long term.
Short-term.
Yeah. Well, my short term goals are always to finish what I'm working on now. now. So
Yes.
I've got a book that I'm almost done with. It's different than my other books in that it's not technically medical. It is scientific, but it has to do with rhino poaching in South Africa. So that's a bit of a change. But so I hope to be. I'm working on the very end. I haven't sent it to a copy editor yet, and I haven't even actually arrived at a title, and that's a whole other thing. I find titles hard to come up with. But so I also have a lot of short stories that I've written, and at I just write them and I put them away because I enjoy writing them. They're rather fast to write, don't take a lot of time, but I would like to organize them and publish them in, you know, as a collection. And long term, I just really enjoy writing, and I would like to continue doing that until I no longer enjoy it. I do like to write about things that I think are current, interesting, uh, people who are curious, who like, for instance, medical thrillers and that genre will enjoy. And that's really what my long term goals are. Um, it's kind of my, you might even say, my third career. Although you know, I don't know how long I'll do it. I do it totally independently. So, but I'm enjoying it. It's fun.
Yes, good luck to your goals, Miss Devon, and looking forward for more success. I know I will be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be an author like you.
My advice would be, don't expect overnight success. Don't even expect success after several years. There's a lot of competition. It's much easier to write a book now that we have computers and you can do, use Word, and it's just so much easier to write. I read about authors from years past, and it would be very difficult. I think a lot of writers today probably wouldn't do that. um, just very difficult to write longhand and make corrections. I, I now you can just search for words. If you want to change somebody's name in it, you can just do a search for the name and change everybody's uh, name uh, easily without actually going through and doing it and crossing it out and writing it by hand. I was actually I'm listening to the biography of Mark Twain right now by Chernow. and I'm not done with it yet. But interestingly, he was the first one to adopt using a typewriter. So he was writing everything out longhand, and he started using a typewriter, um, which maybe that's easier, but it's nothing like using Word nowadays. So, but for writers, I think that you have to like doing it, and then you just keep at it. And I've taken a lot of classes, and I've gone to lectures. You can always improve, and you want to do a lot of reading on your own, so you see different styles. And I'll pick up a book and say, well, I like that style, or I don't like that style, or that's an interesting use of words. So you pick things up by reading and educating yourself. And in the type of writing I do, I have to do a lot of research. And actually, that's one of the things I really enjoy, is learning more in depth about things, which of course I could do anyway, but the writing forces me, I come, serendipitously or circuitously, you know, at a certain subject, and then I read a lot about it. And I think it's important when you do research on something, not to put in everything you learn about it. Sometimes I'll read a book and I think this author just read about that and wants to put everything he or she knows about that subject in this book, but that can be a little too much. So I enjoy expanding my horizons in that way. So just keep.
Well, thank you for that recommendation, Ms. Devon. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course, my book 101 review in sixth season as well. Comedy 101 in sixth season, and on a third season, and my food 101 in sixth season too. Geography 101, Love Letters, Movie 101, Review Music 101, our fourth season, Science 101, Sex 101 in its fourth season, and My Baby Podcast, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Law 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, Bible Verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Ms. Devon, tell us, can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Um, Books that influence me, I I really don't like to do that. I don't like to mention other books. There's a lot of books that have influenced me. There's a lot I like, and there's a lot I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay,
so
so
I don't
we.
like to be cornered and and recommend a particular book. There's many good books out there, and people
Mhm.
have different opinions um, about books.
Okay, so Miss Devon, what does the act of finishing and publishing a book mean to you now compared to what it meant when you started your career?
Well, I guess the first book was kind of exciting. I had a publisher, and I thought that was very exciting, and I really enjoyed that. And now, actually, I've gone a different route. I self-publish. Almost all my books are self-published, and um, I'm going to continue in that way because it gives me a lot more flexibility. So I enjoy publishing on my own, and it's a much faster process, and I don't have to make as many compromises. So it's, I guess you could say, the thrill is gone. It's a thrill when you write your first book and publish it, but I still enjoy it quite a bit. And of course, I enjoy talking about my books. So,
Definitely, definitely. So, Miss Devon, can you please invite our listeners to support your all of your books?
oh, sure. You can find my books on Amazon and any other site. And of course, you can visit my website at Deven Greene. It's with an E at the end of Green, DEVEN GREENE. Um, .com. My books are easy to find. They're all available in audiobooks, print books, and ebooks. So whatever form you like, my preferred form is ebook. But different strokes
Mhm.
for folks. So
Yes, people, let's support Miss Deven Greene because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to rise. So,
and
Miss Deven, thank you so much for your time.
thank you. It's my pleasure.
Welcome, people. See you soon.